Okay, so the play that I decided to touch base on as far as dramatic questions is the piano lesson, just because um, I love the piano lesson. And when I actually first read it a long time ago, I was kind of confused, but I read it at a very, very young age, so I didn't really understand it too much. Um, so now that I'm older and I understand the concept of it, I kind of went back to the things that I was questioning when I was younger. That makes sense. Um, so I did make a list that I'm going to read off of. I had, as far as dramatic questions, first I started off with, will Boy Willie be able to convince Bernice to sell the piano? His strategy in trying to convince her in the play was, to me, was not convincing. So I was curious to see if he would actually be able to do so. Um, I always wondered a while back what the significance of the carvings in the piano was. Initially, I was asking this question before I finished the entire play. Um, the other question that I had was why Bernice was so hell bent on not selling the piano. Um, she could have made a lot of money from it, but I just couldn't understand why she not just sell it. Get some money for you and your daughter, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. Another question was why do we briefly see Sutter's ghost? It's like every time the piano is just touched or moved or shifted, he would appear and then he would disappear. So I couldn't understand that, why he was, just briefly popping up, and he wasn't really doing too much, causing too much harm. He was just making his presence known. The next question that I have is um, was Sutter only trying to keep them from taking the piano and selling the piano because it belonged to his wife? Or was it like a slave master tactic to kind of close the minds of the slaves, to not show them where they came from and who they are? Because if you think about nowadays, a lot of people don't know their history. They don't know if their ancestors were freemen. They don't know if their ancestors are or used to be slaves, or was brought up right out of slavery. But within the piano, that was the big thing. That was the history. So I always wondered if he just used that to just as a tactic to kind of uh, not let the slaves, know who they are and where they come from, and to kind of keep them in that box that, you're slaves, you're animals, and so forth. So those are my big dramatic questions that I had previously. Um, and Yeah, I think that actually helped me as far as my play, because now I can kind of look and see, okay, well, why does my main character do this, and why is this happening, and so forth. So I definitely enjoyed this um, module, because now I can kind of go back to those things that I missed and put them together and figure out how I can make my script better with these questions.